All right, good morning. It's about 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes past the hour. You're just in time for today's daily analysis session with the Afriforex team. Hope guys are good. Good to see lots of familiar names here on the Zoom meeting, and also I can see a couple of people starting to stream in onto social media platforms. Karibuni sana. Hope you're well. For the sake of guys who are new here, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit, so it's not a one-man show. We do have Mitch. He's working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them, both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Of course, that goes out to the guys who are here in the Zoom meeting. Mitch will be getting back to you. For the guys who are watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, rather, and also on Telegram. If you want to interact with us, then make sure that you do come into the Zoom meeting. There should be a link in the video description where you should be able to join in, and you will be able to interact with us. So also for guys who are new here, we do this each and every morning, 9 a.m. in the morning. So feel free to join us with the same link that you did use to join us. Of course, for the guys who are here on Zoom, for the guys who are watching us from the overflows, also still make sure to join us every morning at 9. But at least also for the guys who are here, you can always watch and rewatch these things in case anything is not too clear. But also remember to subscribe, follow, like, and also share, so that at least this information goes out to as many people out there as possible. So we're gonna jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at what we had on the charts yesterday, which is more or less identical to what we do have today, because there hasn't been any change on the watch list per se. So if you are taking note of what we were watching out for yesterday, feel free to take note that the watch list is more or less the same. There's been a couple of fundamentals that have come out, but there's not really any change per se in terms of what we're going to be watching out for. So in case you hadn't taken note yesterday, feel free to do so. For the guys who are here yesterday, then there's really no need. But there will be some fundamentals that will be coming out later on. We will see if things will be changing. If they do, then we'll definitely let you know. So make sure that you also join into the Telegram channel. That's where we're going to be passing out that information. In case things do change, let's say on the watch list, then we'll definitely give you a heads up on the Telegram channel. So make sure that you're into the Telegram channel. So we're going to start off by looking at screenshot that we did get. So we did get this one. This one is from Claire. This is on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So it seems like you got a very good buy on this one. Unfortunately, this one wasn't on our watch list yesterday, but it was on yours. And it's really good to see that you did kill it. You got a really good buy right at the bottom, exactly where you should have gotten it. Quite a professional entry, if I do say so. And of course, the market really moving in your favor. Stop loss already above your point of entry, which is really good. And I can see that at least you're giving the market sufficient space, as it continues to move to the upside. So this is some really good trading, Claire. Of course, really good to see that you're killing it. And of course, keep those screenshots coming in. I know that guys have not really been sending in the screenshots. Don't feel pressured or, afraid to send in the screenshots. Also, it's not really a matter of sending in the screenshots that are really good, even the really bad ones. I mean, we want to see them so that we can give you the advice that you need. So there should be no shame. Feel free to send them in to us. For the guys who used to be here for the daily analysis before, remember how things used to go. We used to give you advice on how you can end up doing things. And we saw a lot of people improving in terms of their trading. So even if you're struggling, don't struggle alone. That's the reason why we're here. Send in your screenshots. We will point out what is wrong with them, and we'll definitely be happy to see that change and that progression in your trading. So you can send them in to us via WhatsApp number, and our contact details should be there on the chat box. We will be more than happy to see that progression and to see your screenshots here. So shout out to you, Claire, and of course, keep up the good work. We're really happy to see your progress. So we're going to jump straight into it. And of course, since the watch list is the same as what was there yesterday, then that means that we will be doing the reviews as we're moving along. Even as we look at what the charts will be having for today. So we'll start off by looking at the yen pairs, and we're going to mix and match those up with everything on the buy side. Then move on to the euro pairs, do the same. Then the Swiss franc pairs. Then we'll finish off by looking at the indices and also the commodities. So the first one, the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts at around 9, this time yesterday, price was somewhere within here. And I did point out that this was not a good area for you to look for your buying opportunities. And clearly you can't see why now. Remember that I had pointed out, you wouldn't have known how the sellers would have reacted. And you can see that they pushed the market down quite aggressively. So you can imagine all the guys who are hitting buys when the market was high up within this region right here. It doesn't matter where you put your stop loss. This week coming down, that definitely got out a lot of people. So you can see that the market did stabilize somewhere within this region. And if you do end up looking at the time, so at around 3 moving into 4:30, you can see that that's when the market did actually end up making a move off this region. And this one just goes to show exactly what we keep on pointing out. You know, patience is very key, you know, when it comes to trading. So you can see that just being patient, you know, waiting for the market to set itself up properly. There are definitely some guys who got some really good buying opportunities within here. I mean, even if you did manage your trade somewhere within this region right here and possibly held on, then you can see that the market did continue to move to the upside. So for this one for today, we're still going to be watching out for buys. So do watch out for this 3 areas right here. So we do have the semi-aggressive conservative region. We do have the aggressive at the bottom right there. And we also do have the conservative all the way at the top within that region. So we will be watching out to see whether we can get buying opportunities within here. And you can see that the buyers have reacted off there. This was earlier, still during the Asian session, which is what we're still on right now. And also just got into the Frankfurt session at around 9. So let's see what happens at 10. During the London market open, we could find the market potentially pushing itself off this region to the upside. So you could potentially end up having some buying opportunities here. You could keep stops down here, but it's also dependent on how the market does end up tapping in within this region right here. You could also potentially wait and see if the sellers who are coming down could potentially attempt to break this region to the downside. If they do and they're unsuccessful, then you could potentially end up trying to attempt some buying opportunities within this region, and hopefully just make sure that you watch out for the region at the top right there. So also remember this region at the bottom, also an area where you could find the market. Remember that yesterday, when we're watching out for the charts at a time like this yesterday, price was somewhere within this region here. No one would have thought that the market could come down all the way till we did here. But you see, that's how the financial market, and especially the Forex market, does end up moving. So just make sure that you're also watching out for this region right here. But remember that in case the market breaks beneath the red SNR to the downside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. Now for this one yesterday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. I did point out caution in terms of looking for the buying opportunities within here. We did need to see the market break to the upside and potentially hold. And you can't see that it didn't do that. And this is a massive probe. So for the guys who are new to trading and we talk about probes, this is exactly what we're talking about. And you can see that the market did spike down all the way even back down till within this region right here. Could have been a bit hard to end up catching or grabbing this buying opportunity somewhere within this region. But ideally, we were expecting maybe price would have come back in within that area. But you can't see that similar situation with the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. You just needed to be patient. And you can see that the market tapped back in within here, and at around 4:30, you can see that there was a good buying opportunity to the upside. I mean, even if you did manage your trade somewhere within there, then that at least was a decent trade. And you can see that the market is in some sort of a range within this particular region right here. So even for this one, the levels are more or less the same. So let's see what happens somewhere within that area there. We should be expecting, or we are anticipating, that there will be some buying opportunities coming in from within there. Try and get the prices as close as possible within there and make sure that you're watching out for the top of the range. You can see that the market has attempted to break above this region a number of times, but price just can't sustain above that region to the upside. So just make sure that you're really watching out for that area there, even if you will be targeting areas much higher. So also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. So in case these prices are not good enough, for the buyers to end up reacting, there's a possibility price might need to tap back in within this region. And in any case, if that happens, then it's okay. I mean, if you get the buys here, you could target all the way up there, but just make sure that you really watch out for this region, because you also could find that on the way back up, price could potentially end up bouncing off this region and could easily end up coming back down to this particular point. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And remember the red SNR, in case the market breaks beneath that region to the downside and holds beneath that area, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. Also remember to watch out for the times that we do keep on pointing out. So 10, 3, and 4:30, you could potentially find some good trading opportunities at that point in time. Also dependent on where price is going to be. So like I keep pointing out, even if your timing is not that great, just watch out for where the market is going to be at that point in time. Especially close to the market opening times, you could get a really good buying or selling opportunity. So you can see like for this one, on the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen, yesterday, if you look at the US session, price was somewhere within this region, and it's more or less similar with the rest of the yen pairs that we've looked at. Some good correlation. And remember, I pointed out that the yen pairs normally do have some good correlation working out on them. So you can see that even this one, similar situation with the rest of the yen pairs. During the US session, price was back in within some sort of a buyer's region, just like we've seen with the others. And off this region right here, you can see that the buy did really end up working out. During the London session, you can see that the market was on the pullback phase. There wasn't really much in terms of buying opportunities, but you can see that it spiked all the way down to within this region right here, just like we've seen with the rest of the yen pairs. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be watching out for buys. So do watch out for those 3 areas right there. So aggressive down at the bottom here, conservative at the top, semi-aggressive conservative region within here. You can see that the buyers are pushing up. Although this doesn't really seem like the big boys, there's a possibility these sellers within here could push the market back down again. Let's wait and see what happens. If they do, and hopefully they come back in and they push the market back down within this area in a very choppy manner, then ideally we could potentially try and see whether we could get a response, of the buyers, maybe somewhere within this region. If they do end up showing that aggression, wait and see what happens. The next response of the sellers, off this region right here and off this area, you could potentially end up typing your buy. So ideally, that's what we are possibly expecting. If we see something like that, then maybe we could try and see whether we could jump in on buying opportunities. But also do watch out, give these sellers the benefit of doubt. They've pushed the market down all the way till here. Before, you could find that maybe they could also give another massive reaction, and you could find the market coming back down all the way till that red SNR. So just make sure that you're also fully on the lookout of that. If you do get the market slowing down somewhere within this region, then it's okay. Ideally, you could potentially try and see whether you could time your buying opportunities off that region right there. So make sure that you watch out for that. Remember the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market breaks beneath that, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us unless price does end up coming back above that red SNR, and we can visually see that price is actually holding above that region. So next one on the yen pairs is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're also watching out for buying opportunities yesterday. You can see similar situation with the rest of the yen pairs, some good correlation. Feels like we're analyzing the same chart over and over again. So you can see that during the London session, just like we've seen with the others, the market did spike down quite aggressively. I did caution against looking for buys within here. You clearly can't see why now. Market came back in within this region. Could have been a bit hard to grab this unless maybe you are looking at the smaller time frames to potentially try and see whether you could get the buys within there. But at least you can see that during the US session, the market was literally holding above here. Could have potentially looked for buys within here, although for this one could have been a bit tricky compared to the rest of the yen pairs that we've seen that are looking a bit much more clearer. But you can see that the market did break to the upside. It's now come back in for some sort of a retest within this region right here. So we will be waiting to see what happens within this area here. And also remember to watch out for correlation. Like I pointed out, the yen pairs normally have some good correlation. If you see something happening on one, make sure that you also do have a look at the rest of the yen pairs. You could potentially find that either you could get some good trading opportunities across the board by just making sure that you're also maintaining your risk. Or on the other hand, even if you're going to be taking 1 or 2 yen pairs, then ideally that should give you some comfort and some confidence to know that more or less your trade will work out, especially if you see the big boys starting to come in on all the rest of the yen pairs as well. Then it means that the big boys are there. Remember that they're the only ones who can push the market. You don't have the capability to do so. So if you see signs that they're there, then that's a good thing for you. You know, it's a sign of good tidings on your end. So for this one, watch out for these three regions right here. Let's see if we can get the market pulling back in. You can see that the market tapped back in within here. The sellers came down aggressive. Buyers have responded quite aggressively there. If you look at the move of the sellers right now compared to how they reacted before, we can generally see a slowdown. And remember, I keep on pointing out, it's very visual. You know, trading should be visual. I mean, if you're really good at reading price action, you don't really need an indicator to tell you when to actually end up executing your buy, because you can actually see and interpret exactly what you're seeing on the chart. So you can visually see the sellers are coming down a bit more choppier than the previous time, which is a good sign. Let's see if we can get the buying opportunities as close as possible within here. If we do, then ideally watch out for this region at the top. Definitely an area where you should be watching out to manage your trade. You can see that yesterday the market came back in within that region aggressively, and yet the sellers were able to retaliate. So make sure that you're watching out for that region at the top. In case this price is not good enough, and let's say the market comes back in here and we can't see any sign of the buyers, and you find the market breaching to the downside and can't come back to the upside of this region, then just watch out for this region at the bottom right here. That's going to be the last area where we will be watching out to see whether we can get aggressive buying opportunities. So last but not least, for the yen pairs, we do have the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we were watching out for buys yesterday. You can see similar situation with what happened with the rest of the yen pairs. You know, those spikes that happened during the London session. The market came back in. Then during the US session, the market was holding within this area right here. But unfortunately, this one didn't go up higher, like we've seen with some of the yen pairs. Possibly and definitely something to do with the US dollar, maybe showing some weakness. So you can't see that during the Asian session, again, the market has attempted to spike back in within this region right here, but we will be waiting to see what happens. Hopefully, we can get the market coming back to the upside of this region right here. So let's say if we get the buyers getting some strength, maybe pushing the market to the upside, maybe even attacking this region, just be a bit patient, wait and see what happens on the next response of the sellers, you know, potentially pushing the market back in within here. If we get a weak response, you know, it's always a matter of relativity. You're comparing what's happening now with what happened the previous time. So if you see a choppy move compared to the previous time when the market came down quite aggressively, then that's a good sign. Ideally, if you end up now timing your buys somewhere within this region right here, ideally there you're not too off. Ideally there you're really keeping in line, you know, with the story and what's happening on the charts. So if you get the buys there, just make sure that you watch out for this region at the top right here. So you can see that the market did bounce off this area yesterday. It could end up doing that again. So just make sure that you're on the lookout for that. In case the buyers don't really end up showing up within this region, then we'll be waiting to see what happens. Maybe if price comes back in somewhere as close as possible within that area there. So just make sure that you're really watching out for that. Also watch out for the times that we do keep on pointing out, like we keep on repeating, 10, 3, 4, 30, and no matter what you do, always do make sure that you always do trade with a stop loss. So that's pretty much it for the yen pairs. So we've mixed and matched them up with everything on the buy side. So we're now going to move on to the euro pairs. We're going to do the same. We're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You clearly can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. It was just coming back in within here. Unfortunately, we couldn't see any reaction of the sellers. And, you know, like we keep on pointing out, location is one thing, which is good. But if you don't see the party coming in, then there's going to be a problem. So you can see that within this area, this was a seller's region. But unfortunately, there was no reaction of the sellers or anything to tell us to look for the selling opportunities. And you can see that the buyers did have a field day during the London session, and they pushed the market all the way till the top. And you can see that it was somewhere within this region where we did get some sort of a reaction of the sellers coming in. And this was during the US session. If you look at the times, at around exactly 4:30. That's exactly when the market did actually make a move. This was during the New York Stock Exchange open. So the market came down. Unfortunately, you can't see that the market is somewhat stuck within this region. Maybe these sellers have also started to possibly start to hold the market. So we will be waiting to see what happens within this area. The levels are more or less the same. So there's a possibility either the market could attempt to break to the upside. If it does, and let's say we see a sign of the big sellers coming in, because you can see that the market had done that before within this region, but these are not the big sellers. These are very weak sellers. You can't compare this with something like this. So if we see maybe an aggression of the sellers to the downside, and we see the market potentially holding to the downside, and there's more of a struggle in terms of the bars, then you could attempt your selling opportunities within here. Just make sure that you watch out for this region at the bottom right here. There's also a minor SNR somewhere within this area right here, where you could find that maybe the buyers could give the sellers some sort of an issue. So if the market comes down and you get your sell there, and the market really struggles to make it past this region to the downside, then also managing your trade at that point in time is actually not a bad idea. Remember that you're here to make money. You're not here to prove a point. The market doesn't necessarily have to get all the way down till here because your mind tells you that the market should. If the market gets stuck within here, make sure that you're also very quick in terms of taking your profits. You could end up putting your stop losses at break even and potentially wait and see what ends up happening after that. So watch out for that. Also remember the region at the top. We're also still going to be keeping an eye out for that. You could find that maybe the market could potentially come back in within here, especially if the sellers do need a much better price. And let's say somewhere within here, the buyers are still giving issues. You could find the market rising back up somewhere within here or levels within these regions here, where you could find the market potentially coming back in within those areas to look for those prices to attempt to come down, maybe even more aggressively, maybe even breaking this region and also this region to the downside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also watch out for the red SNR. If the market breaks above that, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, also watching out for sells. I can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning when we were looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. And you can see that I had pointed out that we did need to see the market break to the downside of this area and hold. Unfortunately, this is not a hold. This is a probe. We did need to see the market break and hold within here for us to execute our selling opportunities. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And you can definitely see that the buyers region within here, because this was an area of support, did react to the upside. It was only during the US session that once the market came back in within here, that the market came to the downside, back in within this region. And you can now see that the buyers did actually push to the upside. But like I pointed out, relativity, if you compare how the buyers went up the previous time and how they went up this region right here, you can definitely see that this one was more of a struggle. You know, some red candles in between. Here it was what happens, especially once the market taps back in somewhere within this region right here, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities, especially if the market does pull back in within this region right here in a choppy manner. So let's just wait and see. You could potentially end up putting an alert, maybe somewhere within this area right here. So let's see if the market does end up coming back in within this region right here, then we do get the market really struggling back up within this region. At that point in time, if you do look for your selling opportunities, you could even target all the way down to within this region. But just make sure that you watch out for this region in the middle there. You could potentially run into issues with the opposite party. So those are the three areas we will be watching out for. So aggressive, somewhere within the conservative, all the way at the bottom right here, and semi-aggressive conservative, somewhere within this particular region right there. So more or less the same areas that we did have yesterday. So the next one is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one, we're watching out for sells. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area here. And we were expecting maybe to get the price coming back in within this area, then could have gotten maybe some sort of sales if we did see a reaction of the sellers. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. You can see that the market came back in within here and bounced off this area quite aggressively. And once it broke this region to the upside, then unfortunately, there was definitely no trade for us. Although the market did do some sort of a massive probe, some hold within here, but it's like the sellers showed up and then after that, they disappeared. So let's see if they possibly will show up again, maybe today, either during the London session or maybe during the US session. So we're going to be watching out for these three regions right here. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas and don't chase the markets. I know that sometimes, especially like for this one, some people may be thinking since we're looking for sales and the sell looks like it's leaving, maybe it's a good idea to hit the sell here. That's a very horrible idea. Don't do that, because ideally, even if you hit the sell here, your stop loss will have to be all the way high up within there, and you're targeting just down within this area. The risk to reward is completely off. So don't chase, just wait for the market to come back in, either within here. You can see that this is also some sort of a buyer's area. You could find the market coming back in within this area, and you could find, some good selling opportunities coming in much later on during the US session. So you could find the pullback coming in maybe during the London session. Then you could find a really good sell coming in during the US session, or you could find that the market could break beneath this region to the downside. Ideally, once you get that confirmation, then you can potentially jump in on your selling opportunities within this area. But jumping in right now, it's like being left by a matatu and you're chasing after it. You just need to wait for the next one. Same thing on the charts. You just need to wait for the next available opportunity. So don't chase right now. Just be a bit patient. Also watch out for the correlation amongst either the Australian dollar pairs or the euro pairs. If you see something moving, make sure that you find out and do some investigation and some research to find out what could potentially be moving or causing what it is that you're seeing on the charts. So the next euro pair is the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one yesterday, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the price was just coming back in within this area right here. So at around 9:10 yesterday, this was a seller's region. We were expecting to see, a move of the sellers and maybe a slowdown of the buyers. But you can generally see that the buyers never really slowed down. The market broke to the upside, did a massive probe, came back in, and you can see that the buyers are now struggling and the market is just coming back in within this area. So yesterday we couldn't get a sell or a proper sell, but let's see if we could get one today. It seems like the charts are really setting themselves up really, really well, because if you look at how the market spiked to the upside and the response of the buyers right now coming back in within this area, we could potentially time some selling opportunities within this area. But just make sure that you do watch out for this region at the bottom. It looks like it's in some sort of a range. So we do have the region at the top and the bottom having some probes, but true SNR is somewhere within these areas that we do have. So if you get your sells within there, watch out for this region at the bottom. If we do break this area to the upside, or to the downside rather, for the guys who are really good at trading, you could potentially jump in on another trade within this area right here and maybe try and come down with the market all the way down to within here. Of course, making sure that you've managed your initial trade. So you can watch out for those three areas. Also remember this region right here. If the market breaks to the upside like it did yesterday and can't come back in, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. But ideally, if it does come back in, then you could potentially time those selling opportunities, because that means that we're back within that structure. And you can see that we're in a range. So if it's back in the range, it's always a good idea to sell at the top of the range, making sure that you're managing your trades at the bottom of the range. So make sure that you really do keep an eye out for that region right there. So last but not least, for the euro pairs, we do have the euro against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have also gotten selling opportunities on it. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the price was somewhere within here just coming up. We're expecting maybe to see a move of the sellers within here, pushing the market back down to the downside. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. The market continued to rally up, maybe expecting some sellers to come in within this region like they had done, the day before or Friday rather. But unfortunately, we couldn't get that happening within this area. And unfortunately, once the market broke to the upside and held above it, at that point in time, there was definitely no trade for us. So today we're back at it. We're going to be trying to see whether we can get selling opportunities on this one. So we have adjusted the levels. So the red SNR and the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get those selling opportunities is somewhere at the top right there. You can see some sort of a reaction that's now starting to come in from the sellers. But what you can do is wait and see what happens when the market comes back in within this region right here, because you can see that the buyers who are pushing the market up right now, the most recent buyers rather, are somewhere within this region. So right now, since the ball is just coming back within their court, let's see if we can get them struggling to push the market back in, within this region. If we do see that, then at that point in time, you could potentially look for your selling opportunities within here to potentially come down. Right now, chasing the sells, ideally, your stop loss will still have to be somewhere within here, but there's also a possibility you could be selling within a region where we have a minor SNR that could give you issues. This support region right here, and you could find that the market could push you back in within this area. So try and get your trades as close as possible as you can within that area, so that at least your stop loss is as tight as possible, and the risk to reward will actually end up being a bit much more better. So you could watch out for that. Remember the red SNR at the top, like we always talk about, it's the last area where you should be looking for your buying or selling opportunities. Remember that having a stop loss is good in terms of managing your risk, but it's also good to know when to stop fighting with the market. You can still use a stop loss, but you'll still get stopped out quite a number of times, and that can still end up blowing up your account. But it's always good to know when to give up fighting with the charts, because if you do fight with the charts, unfortunately, you can never win. So make sure that you always have that at the back of your mind. And that's the reason why we keep on pointing that out during the daily analysis session, so that at least you can know how much is enough in terms of, fighting with the charts. All right. So I hope that's clear for guys. And that's pretty much it for the euro pairs. So I guess we can move on to the last set of currency pairs, which are going to be the Swiss franc pairs, and we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities, and you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within this area right here. So at around 9:10, I did point out that there was a bit of caution in terms of looking for the buys here. We did need to see if the market could break and hold above here. Unfortunately, it didn't. We're expecting maybe the market to pull back in within this region. Unfortunately, the pullback didn't come in as deep as we were anticipating. But you can see that somewhere within this area, definitely a minor SNR, and the market did bounce off this region to the upside. This was during the US session. The market broke to the upside, pulled back in at around 4:30 or thereabout, and you can see that there was another buying opportunity within there. A bit tricky, but you did need to go to the smaller time frame to end up reading that. You can definitely see on the 15-minute time frame, it's not extremely clear. It just looks like the market just pulled back in within there and pushed itself to the upside. So for this one for today, we're still going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for this three areas right here. Right now, the market has come back in within some sort of a buyer's region, but you can see that there's a bit of a fight that's going on within here, and you can see that there are some sellers who are pushing the market down within this region. It seems like the ones who are holding the buyers hostage. Let's see if we can get the market potentially coming back in within here. If it does, getting the buyers as close as possible within here, ideally the risk to reward will be worth it for you. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Let's see what happens. Maybe during the London session open, you could find that, if the market comes back in as close as possible within here, especially at around 10, 10:30 or around that time, maybe we could get some good buying opportunities and the market could lift to the upside. Watch out for that region at the top. But also remember that if this price is not good enough in the market and the buyers need a much better price, then we'll be watching out for this region at the bottom right here. So do watch out for that, but hopefully we should get some good opportunity on that, especially considering the fact that the market is going to the upside. Then it shows that ideally in terms of the general flow, then that one could potentially give a good opportunity. So another one that we do have, and we did have yesterday, is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. For this one yesterday, we were watching out for buys, and you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, we were watching out for the charts, and price was somewhere within here. The market came back in, held within here. It didn't seem like the big boys had really come in, but you can see that at around 10, the market did take off to the upside quite aggressively, came back in within there, came back down. And you can see that even for this one, patience is key. You can imagine all the guys who are hitting buys when the price was high up within this region. just because they missed out when the price was down within here. And, they ended up getting some FOMO. Can imagine where those guys ended up yesterday once the market came back into the downside. You just need to be patient. And you can see that the market gave another opportunity during the US session. So for this one for today, so this one gave two good buys yesterday. Today, seems like a good buy could be coming in on this one. And you can see that the buyers are attempting to push the market to the upside. We're in some sort of a range. Of course, getting the buys as close as possible within here could be good. You can generally see that the sellers did calm down, started to struggle. The buyers have come up quite aggressively, which is good. Right now, the market is back in within a minor SNR. Let's see if those sellers can ideally push the market back in as close as possible within this area. If they do, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get our buying opportunities, somewhere within that area right there, which is the bottom of the range, and definitely targeting somewhere higher up within here. If you get the buys within here, of course, dependent on how the sellers do end up pushing the market back down or back in within this region. You could have your stop somewhere within here, and the risk to reward ideally for this trade could definitely be worth it. So just make sure that you watch out for that, but it definitely seems like it could be something good that's coming in for this one. Of course, if the sellers do come down quite aggressively, then you'll just have to be on standby. Either wait for the market to come back into the upside of this region right here. If that doesn't happen, and let's say there are some struggles, of the buyers to push the market to the upside of this area, and they're really struggling, and you can see that, then just wait and see if you could get the market maybe coming back in, somewhere as close as possible within this region right here. And maybe you could find the buys, really working out of this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Of course, watch out for the times, and no matter what you do, always make sure that you do trade with a stop loss. Over and above giving you guys the setups that you should be watching out for, it's also our job to remind you guys to trade with a stop loss, because we are here to advocate for good, smart, and responsible trading. And part of your responsibility, especially when it comes to trading, is always making sure that you're trading with a stop loss. Because of course, you all know trading carries risk. And I know that most of you have definitely lost at one point or another, and you definitely know that you don't want to be losing all your hard-earned money, just jumping in on setups haphazardly, and also not making sure that you're maintaining your risk. Make sure that risk is at the top even before reward. Unfortunately, most people put reward ahead of risk, and that's the reason why you find people moving backwards in this industry. Ideally, watch out for risk and watch out for preservation of capital above watching out for whatever it is that you want. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're watching out for buys. You can clearly see the three regions that I had pointed out there yesterday. Similar situation with today. The market hasn't really gone above and far and beyond the areas that I had pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. I did take off to the upside. Fortunately, it seemed like this trade just left, and the market did end up coming back in. And this one is also a good example of the patience that we keep on talking about. You can imagine all the guys who are hitting buys when the price was high up within that region there. You just needed to be patient. And if you look at the times, you can see that the market came back in within this region at exactly 4:30, back within a buyer's region. Even if you took it at 3 and just waited for 4:30, you can see that the market did really give a good buying opportunity. So for this one, for today, the levels are the same. But for this one, you will have to be a bit patient. You don't really want to be hitting the buying opportunities right now. You can see that the market has reacted off this area quite a number of times in terms of pushing the market to the downside. So if you do hit a buy here, then ideally you could be, in the territory of the opposite party, which is not really what you want to do. So the best thing to do for this one is either wait for the market to break above this region to the upside. Right now, this breach is not yet confirmed. The market is just attempting to break to the upside. We do need to see more. So by that, what I mean is either we could get the market really holding within this region here. You could find the market attempting to break to the upside, to the downside. And if it does end up being unsuccessful, then you could potentially try and see whether you could get your buying opportunities. One candle, when the market just breaks, you can't really say that's a break. You can imagine that even for the guys who are thinking that the market had broken, somewhere within here, or maybe when this candle was active, and guys were not patient. You just need to be patient. You can watch out even for such kind of things. You can always learn from what the market has done before, because it always repeats. History always repeats itself. So in case the market comes back into the downside, like it's done within this region a number of times and the market can't go back to the upside of this area, then you could potentially find that the market comes back in within this region. Look for buyers somewhere within there. If that price is not good enough and the sellers, I mean the buyers need a much better price, then you could find the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible, within this region right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And watch out for the times as well. So you could find that, maybe during the London session, the market could be on the pullback phase. Then only during the US session, that's when the big boys do actually end up showing up. Because remember that these setups are also session trades. In as much as they are daily setups, you could find that, it's only during one session, either during the London session or the US session. That's when you find that the moves that us guys are anticipating will potentially end up happening. So that's the reason why we keep on pointing out those times. You find that the setup moves during the London session. You could find that maybe during the US session, the market could potentially continue to move in that direction. But most of the time, what you will find is that the London session will do something, the US session will be on the pullback phase. So that's the reason why if you get a setup during the London session, make sure that by the time we're getting to the US session, make sure that you've already managed that trade, because the big boys who are coming in for the next session could easily undo what was done by the big boys who are there in the previous session. So the same situation, even when you're waiting for a setup, you're waiting for a buy during the London session, it doesn't happen. Just wait for the next session. Maybe it could be on the pullback phase during the London session, but the setup that you're actually waiting for could literally happen during the US session or the New York Stock Exchange session. So you just need to be a bit patient and watch out for that. So the next one, and the second last currency pair, is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we were watching out for buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere within this region right here, just coming in. We wouldn't really have known what type of reaction we would have gotten off the sellers within here. You can see that they had reacted off here a number of times before. The market broke to the upside, came back in, and at least you can see that the market was sustaining above this region right here. There wasn't a big move. It's only up until just before the New York Stock Exchange opened. That's when the market really did push itself to the upside of this area quite aggressively. So during the London session, the big boys were really not active. But during the US session, that's when the big boys really pushed the market to the upside. So for this one for today, we're still going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for these three regions right here. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within this region. If we do, and hopefully we see a slowdown of the sellers and the big boys in terms of the buyers showing up, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get our buying opportunities within here. Watch out for that region at the top. Definitely an area where you can see that the buyers pushed aggressively yesterday and the sellers were able to stop them. So you can't assume that the market will just slice through this region right here. That means that you're living in utopia. You're not really being realistic. So make sure that you're watching out for that. If the market does end up breaking beneath this region and we can't get to see a sign of the big boys really coming back in aggressively, then I guess we'll have to wait and see whether we could get the market either coming back in within this region here. But there's also a minor SNR, somewhere within this area right here, where you can see that the big boys pushed the market to the upside yesterday. So you could find that the market could tap back in within this region before the market ends up going to the upside. But for getting the buys, or in terms of getting the buys somewhere within here, I would give a bit of caution, especially if you're not too experienced on the charts. This could be a very technical buy for you, because, by the time, if you get the buy somewhere within here and the market comes back in within there, you also could end up getting squeezed within this region right here. And especially if you're not really well experienced in terms of trading, this is something that could easily end up taking you on an emotional roller coaster, and you don't want to sign up for that. The best thing you can end up doing is, if the market does come back in within this region, and let's say it comes back to test this region right here, you could potentially wait for the market to come above this region. You don't have to look for the buys here. You could wait for the market to come back in within this region. If it holds above here, even if you look for the buys here and have your stops somewhere within that region there, then ideally you could get that buy going up like that. So that ideally, I think, could be a much safer trade. So just make sure that you do watch out for that in case the market comes back in within that region there. So I guess that's pretty much it for the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. As we move on to the last currency pair, which is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we were watching out to see whether we could get buys. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. In the morning, when you're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within this area here. I did point out that you didn't really want to look for your buys too close within there. You wanted to get your buys as close as possible within here. The market came back in, but you can see that there wasn't anything up until the US session. So at around 4:30 or thereabouts, that's when the market decided to make a move to the upside. Unfortunately, the market didn't quite tap back in within that region there. There was a minor SNR somewhere within here. But like I keep on pointing out, even if you get the market starting to do such kind of a struggle, within an SNR, even if we've pointed out the major areas, like you can't see, we can't point out all the regions within the charts, because that would make everything really messy. So ideally, just watching out for these minor SNRs is not a bad thing. So you can see when the market came back in here, managing within there, you not have been too disappointed about that decision, because you can see that the market did actually end up coming back in all the way down to within these areas right here. So for this one, the levels are the same. The market hasn't really moved far and beyond the areas that I had pointed out yesterday. So we'll still be watching out for buying opportunities, and of course areas where we can manage our trades within more or less the same areas. The market has calmed down. This was during the Asian session, calmed down. Seems like the big boys are now starting to show up. Let's see if we can get them potentially coming back up, maybe even pushing this price to the upside of this region. If they do, and we're back within this sort of range, choppy downward channel that we're in, then ideally we could look for the buying opportunities somewhere within this region here. Just make sure that you watch out for the top somewhere within that area there. Hopefully, based on the fact that the price has come back in to the downside of this region right here, and comes back and holds above here, hopefully this could potentially bring in the liquidity that we need. And many people jumping in terms of sales to give the market and the big boys enough money to potentially break this region to the upside. So let's just wait and see what happens. But ideally, all eyes should be around this region to really see what does happen. In case we don't get a reaction of the buyers really coming in and the sellers really slowing down within this region, and the market can't hold to the upside of this area, then just watch out for this region at the bottom right here. I guess the buyers could potentially need a much better price, and that better price could maybe be somewhere within this region right here. So watch out for that. Remember the red SNR. In case the market does break that region to the downside and holds below it, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So that's pretty much it for the currency pairs. So we can move on to the commodities and the indices. So even those ones are more or less the same as what we were watching out for yesterday. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, we were watching out for sales. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out in terms of areas where we can look for sales, and also areas where we can potentially manage our trades. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within this region. I had pointed out that we were waiting to see whether we could have gotten the price coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this area right here. And you can see that at around 10 or thereabout, or within the first hour of the London market open, the market did actually react to the downside. Similar situation to what it had done earlier during the Asian session yesterday. Gave a really good sell, although a bit hard to end up grabbing, unless maybe we just got the sales there, maybe had your stop somewhere within that region there. The market came down. You did need to manage within that area. During the US session, the market broke to the downside, and this one was really good. In terms of the things that we do keep on talking about, you can see that the buyers attempted to push the market to the upside. They attempted to break above this region, and the sellers did react, and the market held below it. Even if you did look for another sell somewhere within that region there, you can see that the market did continue to push to the downside really, really well. So for this one today, the bias is still to look for those sells. And remember that for as long as we're holding below that red SNR to the downside, then ideally the bias should be to look for those selling opportunities. If we do break above this red SNR, then you can look for your buying opportunities more confidently. It doesn't mean that you can't look for buys now. You can, but don't be overconfident in terms of looking or taking those buying opportunities. It's only once the market does actually break above this region to the upside that you can be more confident in terms of looking for our buying opportunities. So let's see what happens. Hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed. Either the market gets back in within this region here, and we could look for some really good sells to come down. You could find that during the London session, the market could be on the pullback phase, coming back in within here, or maybe even all the way to the top there. Anything is possible. And you could find that the sales could really work out during the US session, or you could find that the market could hover around within this region right here, maybe even break to the downside, but you could find it maybe holding beneath this region to the downside, maybe waiting, for the US session to come in, and that's when you could find the market pushing to the downside. Maybe something similar to what we did end up experiencing within this region right here. If we get a replica of that within this area, then ideally you could look for your selling opportunities. So do watch out for that. And of course, in case you don't really see anything happening right now, remember that the indices and the commodities that we're looking at are pegged on the US dollar. So if there isn't much of a move that's going to be happening during the London session, then you just need to wait for the US session, and maybe you could find, the trading opportunities working out at that point in time. So the next one is the Dow Jones. For this one, we're watching out for buying opportunities yesterday. You can clearly see the 3 areas that I had pointed out. We didn't really get the deep pullbacks coming in, but you can see that yesterday in the morning when we're looking at the charts, the market was just approaching this area. I did point out that you didn't really want to look for your buys at that point in time. You are not well aware of what could have potentially happened. And the market broke to the upside, pulled back in. And if you look at the times, at exactly 4:30, and I know that we keep repeating these times like a broken record, but like I pointed out, it is what it is. If you watch out for those times, there's a high probability you will get some good trading opportunities. You saw that the NASDAQ moved to the downside at that time. This one went to the upside, and also a number of currency pairs also working out at that time. So even if your timing is not that great, dependent on where the market is, during the market opening times, you can potentially end up grabbing a really good trade, and the probability of your trade working out does end up increasing significantly. So you can see this one at 4:30, the price pushed to the upside quite aggressively, and it seems like there are a bunch of sellers somewhere within here who are giving the buyers issues. The market did end up starting to slow down within this region here. So let's see what happens. Right now, don't really look for the buys right now. Either wait for the market to break above this region to the upside, and if we do get a hold, maybe something similar to this, you could look for your buys, but you also could end up waiting to see what happens. You could find that maybe during the London session, the market could be on the pullback, could get the market coming back in within there or somewhere within this region here, and maybe at around 4:30, you could find the market taking off from within this region right here, or maybe somewhere within this region right here. So you just need to be patient, but also remember, for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, the bars should be to look for buying opportunities. You can look for sales, but just be well aware that the sales that you're taking are counters. So don't be too overly ambitious and optimistic in terms of those trades. Ideally, they can end up failing at any point in time without any warning. So you just need to be well aware of that. So the second last thing that we're looking at is silver. So for silver, yesterday, the bars was to look for sales. I can clearly see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. There's nothing that really changes much on this one. The levels are more or less the same. Seems like silver is more or less stuck within those 2 regions right there. There wasn't any move yesterday on this one, but we're in some sort of a range between these 2 regions right here. So of course, in terms of looking for the sales, you want to get your sales as close as possible within this region right here. Yesterday, the market did come in as close as possible within that area there. But unfortunately, you couldn't really see the big boys really checking in. But you can see that the bars within the region at the bottom also really camping ground within that area. So you don't really want to get your sales too close within this region. Let's see if we can get, hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed, if we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. Maybe during the London session, the buyers, the traders in London really struggled to push this market back in within here. Then during the US session, we could potentially find that maybe the market could potentially give us a really good sell coming down back in within this region. Or maybe if the market really struggles within here and hopefully breaks to the downside, if we do end up getting confirmation that the market is holding to the downside, and we even visually see that, the buyers are attempting to push the market to the upside and they're unable and unsuccessful to do that, then ideally we could look for selling opportunities within this region right here. So watch out for that. Also remember the red SNR, like we keep on pointing out, there's no price that's too far. When it comes to the Forex market, you could find that the market is down there right now, but during the US session, you could find it all the way up at the top within that region, and maybe you could get a really good sell coming down on silver. So just make sure that you watch out for that, but also have it at the back of your mind. For as long as we're holding beneath the red SNR, ideally we should be looking for those selling opportunities because we're fully technical on the commodities and also for the indices. It's just that sometimes you will find the fundamentals possibly coming into play. And I mean, that's allowed. And it's something that you can't end up stopping. But ideally, you will find that most of the time they will follow the technical aspect. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now, for gold, yesterday, the bias was to try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities. And you can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. So you can see that I did point out also this SNR right here. Remember, I pointed out you don't really want to be looking for yourselves too close within here. You could find the market reacting, and you can see that the market did quite literally push itself off this region to the upside quite aggressively. The sellers retaliated, but if you look at how the sellers came down and how the buyers had gone up, it seems like the buyers were still stronger. And that's the reason why you can see that there was a fight that was really going on within here. And the buyers really pushed the sellers. And you can see that the market went to the upside, but still no sign yet in terms of the big boy sellers coming in. Maybe this could be the first sign, but we generally need to see the market really slowing down within here in terms of the buyers. If you do end up taking some selling opportunities within this region right here, this is not a bad area in terms of looking for yourselves. But just make sure that if you don't see the market really coming down quite aggressively, especially taking out this region quite fast to the downside, then there's bound to be a problem, especially if the market comes back in within this region. If you find the market holding within here, it might not really end up being the best of sides. You might need to end up managing your trade at that point in time because you're not too sure whether the market could do something like that. You could easily end up getting taken back to square one. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But ideally, if we get the sellers coming in quite aggressively and they actually take out this region to the downside, if the market comes back in within here and comes back in slow, you could manage your fast trade. If you get your fast trade there, you could manage your fast trade and maybe potentially try and see whether you could get in on, another trade somewhere within there. Of course, that goes out to the guys who are more experienced in terms of trading. But ideally, if you get the sales there, just make sure that you're watching out for this region at the bottom. Ideally, that should be the area where you should be managing. This is more like a problem area that's in between. So watch out for that, and also this region at the top right here. So in case you do get the buyers coming in quite aggressively and they push the market back to the upside and the sellers really struggle, you could find that the market could be zooming to the upside, and you could find that maybe at around 4:30, if the market is backing within there, maybe that's when the monster sell that we're expecting could potentially end up happening. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Remember the red SNR at the top. In case the market breaks that to the upside, then unfortunately, at that point in time for us, we will be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. Of course, once we do end up getting that confirmation. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything that we're watching out for. I can see a lot of chit chat on the Q&A. We'll be looking at that in a bit. Before I jump into that, just reminding guys, the masterclass deal is still on. We do have about 3 days and 13 hours to go. And you can see the seconds are counting. So if you're not in on it, make sure that you jump in on it. Like we have been pointing out, there's another program that we're bringing in to supplement the masterclass real soon. We're just doing some final touches on it. So of course, the masterclass will be needed. Reason being so that we can all start off from a level where we can understand each other. We won't go too basic into things because within this small class setup that we're going to be having, it's a matter of potentially getting deeper into the charts, trying to see whether we can get some trading opportunities, explaining the rationale behind what it is that we're doing. So we can't have people there asking us what is a stop loss when we are getting ready to jump in on a trade. So we all need to be at the same level. Same thing with, how education works. You can't have a primary school student going to university. You all need to be at the same level so that you can have a common level of understanding and also be able to move together faster. So for the guys who are in on the masterclass, then just make sure that you're revising and potentially going through it. We will be taking a lot from that, especially into the new course. So just make sure that you go through it. For the guys who are not in on it, just make sure that you do jump in. We do have a couple of days to go. And ideally, that gives you enough time to sort yourself out. So looking at the Q&A, so I see Daniela Omo, good to see you, saying good to see you again, John. I'm happy, good to hear that. Daniela, good to see you here. I see AK. You're asking, will you do live analysis during card news at 3:30 today? Unfortunately, we we won't be doing that. But ideally, we've given you the tools of what you need to do. In terms of the live trading, I know lots of guys are asking about that. We will see what we can do. I mean, we're only 1 week back. There's definitely the weekly swing and, you know, the live trading aspect and so many other things that guys are asking about based on the things we used to do before. We will try and see whether we can potentially end up jumping back into that. But unfortunately for today, we won't be doing that. But let's see what the future holds. Definitely something that we will be planning to bring back. So I see Peter Washida there saying what happened to oil, because I don't see it on the watch list. Unfortunately, we're not really looking at oil per se. But I can't see that Mitch has also given a lot of explanation there as to why we're not going to be looking at oil. But we've ideally also listened to what people do end up wanting to look at. You know, before lots of guys used to ask about the indices. We didn't really have much time for that. Lots of guys had also asked us for oil at the beginning. We had oil, but unfortunately, not very many people were actually trading oil. So we ended up scrapping it. But it's not that it's cast on stone that it can't come back. It can. Remember, there are polls that we're going to be conducting, and there's already one that we conducted last week. So it's something that we'll potentially be doing from time to time. And, you know, if guys do actually end up showing an interest in it, then we could potentially end up bringing it back. But unfortunately, for now, it's not there, but it's definitely something that you can bring back. So I see Esther Kimani there saying, good morning. Does the watch list apply for trading on higher time frames, e.g. the 1 hour time frame? Ideally, the analysis that we give, in as much as we're showing it on the 15-minute time frame, this is actually information that is more or less derived from the 1 hour time frame. So you will find that lots of the currency pairs, in fact, most of them that we're looking at, if you go up a higher time frame, the levels are more or less even more visible, especially when you're looking at the 1 hour time frame. So the 15-minute, or the reason why we go down to the 15-minute is actually just to get just a bit more deeper insight of what's happening. Because you see, on the 1 hour, yeah, you can actually end up getting the levels, because you can see like within this region right here, the market did react. For gold, there's definitely this region right here, but just to get a bit more detail, just to see what's happening, so that you're also more in tune with what's happening in the market on, you know, on a regular basis compared to the 1 hour time frame. That's the reason why we actually go down to the 15-minute time frame, so that you can actually end up getting that precision. Because if you're timing the 1 hour trades on the 1 hour time frame, it could be a bit hard. You could literally actually end up missing out on quite a number of opportunities. But the structure, the levels and everything, we actually derive them from the 1 hour time frame. We fine-tune them on the 15-minute time frame, read the story on the 15-minute time frame. When we see something that's of interest for us on the 15-minute, then we actually go down to the 3-minute to actually get that precision, so that we can get the stop losses and everything much tighter to give us some proper risk to rewards. So you can actually trade them with the 1 hour time frame. On the 4 hour time frame now, or let's say anything beyond now the 1 hour time frame, I don't really think it would really end up applying as such. But I can't see that Mitch also did give his 2 cents there. So I see Calvin Demo, good to see you. You're saying Telegram has breaking audio. I don't know about that. Maybe it could be something we possibly need to look at, or maybe also could be something on your end, but we'll have a look at it to see. But apologies for that. So I'm not really seeing any more questions, which is okay. So I guess we also need to jump in on the chat. So about 8 minutes into the London session. So I want to thank guys so much for making the time to be here with us. I know that you're busy people, but like I always say, can't thank you enough for making the time to be here with us. So hopefully we'll see you guys tomorrow. If you do get any trades whatsoever, whether good or bad, feel free to send in those screenshots to us. Us guys will be more than happy to see what you guys are up to. Hopefully even to see that the information that we're giving you is also beneficial to you guys. And the only way we can end up doing that is by seeing that at least you guys are getting some of the trades. And, you know, we're not really charging anyone anything for these things. The only thing we just want to see is that ideally the information that we're giving is actually going into good use. So feel free to send them in to us via WhatsApp, whether good or bad. We're here for the general good of you and for the industry. So also, if you're getting a lot of value from these sessions, also feel free to invite people into these sessions. So with that, happy trading, guys. And of course, for those guys who are protesting, make sure that you're also safe out there. You do matter and you're important, and we do need you here. So hopefully we'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. in the morning. And as always, God bless. May the peeps be with you. Bye for now.